Indiana football left no doubt in their final non-conference game, steamrolling Indiana State 73-0. The Hoosiers piled up 680 yards of offense, held the Sycamores to just 77 total yards, and saw breakout performances from Omar Cooper Jr. with 207 yards and 4 touchdowns, and freshman running back Kobe Martin. With a 3-0 start, the non-conference slate is in the books, and now the Big Ten gauntlet awaits. The Hoosier Tailgate starts now.
And picked off up the sideline. Indiana, Asbury, walking them down. Woo! IU, America, they got a football team now.
Conference play has arrived for the Hoosiers. Saturday marks the Big Ten opener for the Indiana Hoosiers against the Fighting Illini. And this is where we find out just how ready this Indiana team is under Coach Curt Cignetti. Hello again, everybody. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and welcome to another edition of the Hoosier Tailgate tonight. We thank you for joining us on this live stream. And if you could do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button and that little bell for notifications to let you know when the tailgate goes live. And we want to thank all those that are joining us from other platforms like X and Facebook. We do appreciate you tuning in each and every Monday and Thursday during the season, as well as thehoosier.com is running their special $1 for the first month, 50% off for the rest of the season. Some great coverage over there on this game Saturday. I encourage you to get over there and take a look at what has been happening on thehoosier.com. A lot of stuff going on. And like I said, this one's going to be a good old-fashioned Big Ten football game. And right now, this is the game that I've said in the past, and we've talked about in the preseason, that Indiana is entering that 3-game gauntlet of going to with Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon here over the next 3 weeks. And this Hoosier football team has got to be locked and loaded and ready to go, because they're going to get punched right in the nose with all these teams in the next 3 weeks. And this is going to make or break a good year for Indiana. Some are calling it an elimination game for the college football playoffs, or a play-in game, however you want to look at it. It's got the national attention of everybody as one of the top games in the Big Ten this week. And you're going to be able to see that if you're not able to be in person. NBC, big game Saturday night, 7:30 kickoff for those of you that will not be in attendance. But if you are in attendance, it's a great day of tailgating and football Saturday night there in Bloomington. Weather looks to be perfect and a little warmer than what maybe we've been used to here over the last few weeks. And but that's going to make for great times there in Bloomington. I want to get you updated on a couple things here before we really get going. Remember, on my bio page on X, YouTube description is a list of affiliates that are a part of the tailgate, as well as Fanatics. There are links there that will link you right to the Fanatics store, and there is some great IU gear there for you to look at and purchase if you want to, as well as from the other affiliates. If that would happen, we will get a little bit of a commission, but that all rolls back into the tailgate and our production and things like that. And if you decide to do that, I give you appreciation and a big fist bump for that, but wanted to let you know of those affiliates and how thankful I am for them to be a part of the tailgate. The portal window has been voted on and approved by the NCAA. It's going to be a one window as of right now that will start January 1st. Now, it's passed, but I don't think it's gone through the appropriate measures where the schools get to vote on it and see where everybody stands on this. But January 1st is a terrible date. You still got teams in the college football playoffs. You got teams that are going to be in potential bowls and preparing for bowls. So January 1st isn't a great date when it comes to that and things of that nature. So this one is, I think there's still going to be some debate on it. I agree that they're going to a one window. I like that aspect of things and not having multiple windows. And I think that helps out tremendously in terms of coaches being able to manage their rosters. So that in itself is pretty good from that standpoint. And I do think at some point they'll get it all worked out on the best avenue for that avenue for the coaches and everyone else considered. Now, I haven't been a big proponent of the FPI because I really don't quite understand it. It brings a lot of factors into it, not only your strength of schedule, but your opponent's strength of schedule and things of that nature. But right now, comparing Indiana has a 62.8% chance to win on Saturday. Take it for what it's worth. That is where that stands at right now. The bet line, according to BetMGM, has fluctuated. I think it moved to 5.5. The last time I checked it, I do think it was back down to 4.5 on the line for Saturday. Indiana laying the points, which is kind of ironic when you think about a number 9th ranked team coming into Bloomington, playing the 17th ranked team, 16th ranked team, however you want to look at it. That's it. But on the FPI, if you go there and look at ESPN's FPI, Indiana's ranked 16th in their computations, and Illinois is actually 23rd in their power ranking polls, things of that nature. So that's an interesting dynamic when you are looking at things, and there you would understand why there'd be some points given in that regard. But if you paid attention just to the AP and the coaches poll, you would think that Illinois would be the favorite team because they're the higher ranked team. So it's going to be fun. That's all I can tell you. These two teams are going to be worthy of a big time show on Saturday night. That's all I can tell you in that regard. And while Indiana, in most people's eyes, is the best show in town on Saturday, the other big game is Michigan at Illinois, is Michigan at Nebraska. That's the other big one that's taking place this Saturday. That's where the big noon kickoff will be, and they will have that coverage, which I thought was a little ironic that ESPN and their game day crowd chose to go to Miami to cover the Hurricanes versus Florida. And I just thought that was an ironic choice when you had really two big-time Big Ten programs playing in the conference as much as these games mean in the overall standings in the Big Ten. But that Michigan at Nebraska is going to be a dandy one too, so that will get you all started off on Saturday. But most importantly right now, we're going to get to talking down some of these topics of discussion with this Indiana versus Illinois game. And, the biggest thing there is from that standpoint is Indiana and Illinois are in some ways pretty identical in their approach and stuff. So, there's a lot of cross-referencing, looking at it from a coach's perspective is, and there's Rudy. All right, Rudy, 21, baby. You said it right here, lock it. And there's a lot of, really good players on both sides of the aisle this Saturday, with Luke Altmaier coming in, Beatty, the wide receiver, Fagan, a big-time running back. Defense, they got quick bodies on defense. That's what I'll say. They are very, very quick on defense in that aspect of things. So looking at some of that is going to be a interesting component. And let's see if I can get over here. Here's some of the games on this weekend to remind us what's all going on. And again, Iowa and Rutgers is teeing off on Friday night. That's a Fox broadcast. Maryland at Wisconsin, another game that's interesting. NBC will have that coverage. And I do think Maryland is an underdog in that game, which kind of surprised me a little bit. The quarterback from Maryland is really good. That may be a game to take the points and bet the Terps, but that is on noon at NBC. Ohio State and Oregon in the Civil War. That is a big time rivalry game at 3:00 on the Big Ten Network. That one, I doubt if it's going to be that great of game, but they've had some dandies in the past, that's for sure. 3:30 is the Michigan-Nebraska game on CBS, so that's the big time CBS game of the week. And then you've got also kicking off then is Purdue at Notre Dame, that being an NBC game as well. So that's going to be a dandy. Yes, that is a great reminder about Indiana's first big win over a ranked team since 2020. So it's been a few years since Indiana has had that type of opportunity in Bloomington with two ranked teams playing. It's not something that has happened that much over the years. But that Purdue-Indiana game is going to be, or Notre Dame and Purdue game is going to be an interesting too, because Purdue played USC pretty good in all due respect to what Coach Odom has done there in totally transforming their roster. They had a couple plays that went against them, but that game is interesting because right now Notre Dame is reeling and their defense isn't very good, and they're on Chris Ash, who's the defensive coordinator, and Marcus Freeman. And so things in South Bend right now are not all too happy with where they're at after that loss to A&M on Saturday night. So we'll see what happens there Saturday when Purdue goes to Notre Dame. Illinois and Indiana, like I said, that's an NBC game. We'll get into that more here in a few minutes. Then Washington State, another rivalry game. The Apple Cup is what that one is called. It's on CBS at 7:30. And then at 11 p.m. on Fox, Michigan State and USC. So there is a lot of, interesting games first week in the Big Ten Conference play for most teams. Coming up week 1 of the Big Ten Conference kickoff. So there's going to be a lot of jockeying and shuffling around here in the next couple of weeks. So a lot of the picture that we'll be getting on that will be coming here very shortly when it comes to that stuff. And again, I just think that's one of those things that Indiana and Illinois, it's going to be a dandy. And I'm excited to see this ball game. I mean, we talked about it for a number of weeks leading up to that date tomorrow. And, Illinois has had their ups and downs over the year. Their best opponent they've played has been Duke. And we'll take a look at some of that tape tonight. And one thing that stood out to me with that ball game, it was a 14-13 ball game at the half. And in the second half, Illinois exploded. But why they exploded was Duke turned it over 5 times. They had a muff punt in this game. They had a penalty that was called on them because they had 2 guys in the same jersey number on the field at the same time, which is a big no-no that negated the punt from Illinois and gave them an automatic first down. And so it was a weird game in that second half with Duke. And had those circumstances not occurred, I don't know what that outcome would have been. But that's really, Illinois was a benefactor, and they did a great job of taking advantage of your opponent's mistakes and made them pay for it. And you just can't turn the ball over 5 times in a ball game and have special teams issues and expect to win. It's just it's disaster written all over it. So then they came back against Western Michigan, and first half they just weren't very good, especially on offense. And that's the story I told you about bielema going in at the locker room at halftime, punching a whiteboard. I don't know what the status of his hand is, but he said after the game, it was still numb from hitting the whiteboard, but they just didn't look like they were all on the same page against Western until the second half. And then things started, looking like an Illinois team should look with the number right team. So, it's going to be interesting to that and stuff. And yeah, Duke lost to Tulane, but Tulane's pretty darn good team. But again, that's their, best win because they're a P4 team, and it's all the makings of the debate of strength of schedule. Yeah, Duke did give it to them. Let's see. Well, we're going to talk about that, David, in a few minutes, about Illinois' unique defensive approach to things. And I'll say this, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors with their defense. They do a lot of things, and I don't know if it's necessarily to cover up weaknesses, but there's a lot of smoke and mirrors that they present to an opposing offense that makes you have to be in the right mindset during that ball game because of what they like to do defensively. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. Thanks for watching there, Balin, all the way from Fort Jackson, South Carolina, down there in, I guess you could say, ACC country. Appreciate you tuning in, having you here tonight. Very thankful for that. But, like I said, there's a lot of unique games this weekend, and it's going to be a dandy of a ball game. And I think that's one thing that looking at Illinois here let's see here. Let's see. Did the top. Let's go. That's what I want. We're there. Let's do this. And we're going to get into hopefully this here in a second. Takes it some time sometimes. There we go. But, some of the top players that you've all heard about, and I'm not going to surprise you all that much from that standpoint. They lost some of those important parts of the James Madison crew from last year. Some of those guys are gone now, and there's probably at least 7 or 8 still around, but they did lose quite a bit of that group from last year because they only had 1 year left of eligibility. Luke Altmaier, he is a really good quarterback. That's all you can say about him. He started his career at Mississippi because he is a Mississippi boy, ended up transferring up to Illinois. And, he's completing 72% of his passes. He's thrown no interceptions on the year as yet. He's got a quick delivery. Now they've given up sacks because their offensive line is probably their weakest unit on offense. And sometimes he holds the ball too much, waiting for things to happen. But he is has a very live arm. When you watch him and watch his throws. One interesting thing there is you see he leads the nation in career game-winning drives in the final minute or in overtime with 5. So that's something to keep an eye on in the back of your mind in a close ball game, that this young man has the ability and has shown the ability to bring his team back and change the fortunes of their team in one game with those type of things there, with him having that, winning game drives. I mean, I when I saw that, I was like taken aback a little bit, but then I kind of went back and looked at it, and lo and behold, he had done that. So he is a really good quarterback. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten. You could put it in the nation as well. Him and Mendoza, I don't look at it and say, well, who do you think is better? I think they're equally as good. What that will come down to between the battle of those two is who of those two quarterbacks makes the least number of mistakes. That's going to be a key component in this game. Running back Fagan here is a stud. He's like 6'3", 250 pounds. He's big. He's strong. He started since a freshman. He was a 4-star. So he's a big type of bruising running back in the backfield for them. And he's going to be the guy they're going to go get the tough yards from. He's a guy that definitely inside the red zone, down inside the 5 and things of that nature, you can about count on him being in the game to carry the ball. And he is a load, and he runs hard. And now he's not a burner by any stretch of the imagination, but he can pound on you a little bit, kind of like Roman Hemby can, and Black and those type of guys that have that power behind them and make it difficult for a defense to actually tackle them. And then the leading receiver is Hank Beatty. He's a 4-year starter as well. And he's one of those guys that you're not going to be overly impressed with his physical stature, but the kid can play. And he has, had a very good career to date at Illinois. And anytime a kid started for 4 years, you got to say he's a pretty darn good player. But right now, 15.2 yards a catch. He's at his longest 59. He had a big run in a Wildcat situation against Duke where he took a kind of a quarterback sweep mentality and ran it in from about 30 yards out. So they use him in unique ways, and they target him in terms of where they're throwing the ball or what they're trying to do. So he's a guy that Indiana's defense is going to have to be aware of on Saturday. On defense, the Hood kid, one of their linebackers, very good player, 3-year starter. I'd say he's their defensive leader. Smart kid's already graduate, is in grad school at Illinois. And he is a guy that, they'll play him inside. They'll play him on the outside. They do a little bit with all of him. And he was one of those guys that you can always count on being the steady Eddie in their defense. Yes, that is correct. Yeah, like I said, the kid's a ball player. He's a baller, man. You got to give the kid credit because he's the type of guy you'd want on your team if you're picking sides, because he's one of those guys that you don't think is going to make a play, and lo and behold, he does. So, but Hood is a good player. The one kid that Indiana will definitely have to be aware of is this kid, Jackus. He is their edge rusher, and he has got a lot of skill. He's quick. He's fast. You can see his career there. He's got 19 and a half sacks and 26 TFLs. And he's a guy he's a guy that that Indiana is going to have to be aware of where they put him, because they also move him around. They'll put him on the edge. They'll put him at linebacker depth, but he's a guy that you're going to have a plan for in your pass protections, where maybe you're chipping him with the running back or doing things to help out that situation with him, because the kid's a stud and he can get after it. And you got to like his motor, because he's one of those guys that's got a high motor. But when you look at their team, I mean, these guys that they have are, legit ballers. And they have been in a program that Bret Bielema has built up over the last 3 years. And there are some guys that have transferred in. He's used the portal here and there, but like their offensive line, which I still think is their weakest point on the offensive side of the ball as a unit, they were all there a year ago. So they've already been, the 5 starters are definitely returning veterans. And it's not that they're terrible or anything. It's just sometimes they get wonky in some of the stuff that they're trying to do. And you gotta attack this offense of Illinois, because if you just kind of sit back and wait for them to come to you, that ain't gonna work, because they're too good in that respect. So you got to be a defense that's got to get after this offense. And same thing offensively, with all the different looks that they like to, show. You got to be in tune with what's happening, and know that you're probably going to call a lot of plays and run it mentality, and they're going to catch you a couple times because they come out in something that maybe you weren't expecting, or it's a new blitz they've put in this week and things of that nature. But their defense is, as right now, statistically about the same as Indiana's defense. I think they're giving up like 74 yards on average on rush offense. And we'll get to those stats here in a second. But, those are the things that, you got to be very in tune with what they do with their players offensively and how they shape their defense, because they're definitely a team that can make you pay for your mistakes and stuff. So you got to be aware of all that. Let's see here. What's this one? Yeah, that's some of the comparisons I wanted to show you here before we do get into some of the breakdowns and stuff. But right now, as you can see in this matchup scenario, what the offense looks like. We're going to look at it from the standpoint of what do the two offenses look like statistically, what the two defenses look like statistically. And then we'll talk about kind of some things that I think are going to be very important in this ball game. But you can see from a comparison standpoint right now, Indiana has a big advantage in total yards a game. Rush offense is averaging over 300 a game, and that's going to be huge for Indiana Saturday night. I'm not saying they're going to rush for, again, 300 yards, but if they can control the ball on the ground and make Illinois have to really defend the run, that's when you open some things up against this ball club, because then you're dictating the play. They cannot let Illinois dictate the play on defense versus Indiana's offense. But you can see Mendoza 2,808, 467%, and Altmaier is at 241 yards, 72%. Look at the third down conversions right now. Indiana's been great, 62% on third downs, and Illinois is even at 47%, which is darn good as well. And I've always said, if you got a team that's got a high third down conversion rate, it's because they're facing more third and mediums to third and shorts than they are third and longs. because they have been highly efficient on first and second down in their offense. And both of these teams have done that. Indiana a little bit more so than I think that Illinois has, but they all put themselves in that position on offense to be in more third and medium, third and shorts than anything else. Then on the red zone scores right now, Indiana has been at 87% and Illinois at 89%. And then when you look at the red zone touchdowns, they're both identical in that regard. It's one of those things that it's kind of interesting when you think about that, how successful these offenses have been through the first 3 weeks. Now, turnover off of points, Indiana over the years, a +6 in the turnover margin, but they've scored 24 points off of turnovers. Illinois right now is at a +9, and having a team that turned the ball over 5 times helps you a ton there. But they've scored 21 points off of the turnovers thus far of the year. So again, offensively, you can see that how they match up there is pretty identical to what Indiana is. Then when you flip it over to the defensive side of the ball, you can see some things here in terms of where they're at defensively. Indiana only giving up 7.7, Illinois 7.3. So you can see where I'm going with this. Pretty identical. Rush defense, Illinois 74 yards a game on average, Indiana 115. Pass defense is a pretty good discrepancy there, 193.7 to 105, and then total yards a game. Then when you get down to third down percentages, this is what tells you why these defenses have been productive. 22% and 32%. So they're making offenses face more third and longs because their defense has been very efficient on first and second down, just like Indiana has. And that is huge in that regard. That to me is, tells you how good these defenses are. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything over here in chat. Rudy's got some things there. Yeah, Indiana with the Indiana State game they're I would say you got to look at that as their offensive numbers are inflated because Indiana State was just awful. Yeah. Okay, Rudy. Yeah, they're all, and their offense struggled, like I said, against Western Michigan in that first game, first half last week. So they have struggled. So that's an interesting dynamic, like you said there. Where these teams are in terms of statistical data. And again, stats is just painting you a little bit of a picture of where a team is at a certain point in time. And you got to look at it from the standpoint of who they played up to that point. Again, it's a big issue in there when you get some inflated stats, but they always seem to equal out once you kind of get into the teeth of the schedule and such. But you can't take away from the productivity that they displayed in those games because, they were on point with what they were trying to do each and every game with those teams and stuff. So it's definitely a offense and defense that is very similar in a lot of ways statistically. And you look at that statistically, and what stands out to you right now is Indiana's rush offense and where they're at compared to Illinois. Rushing the football is still a big factor in winning games. That's not to say that the team that comes out and throws it the best doesn't win. because they're all different type of circumstances that may or may not be the reason for winning. But most of the time, the team that rushes the football the best is the team that's probably going to win the game. And right now, when you look at that statistic alone, Indiana holds almost a 3-1 advantage over Illinois, even though we know it's a little inflated there against Indiana State and what Indiana did. But what you've seen from Indiana in the rush game is consistency. That's the thing that I think. It's not easy to go out and rush for 300 yards. I mean, I don't care who you play. It's just a hard thing to accomplish. But Indiana's done it for 3 straight weeks. So that's something to keep kind of in the back pocket when you look at things a little bit from that standpoint. Let's see. We looked at that already. Okay. Well, we're going to take a little bit of a break here. Going to hear from Academy Sports as well as BetMGM Sportsbook, because they are proud affiliates of the Tailgate as well as the Hoosier.com. So we'll be back right back here in a few minutes on the Hoosier Football Tailgate on the Hoosier.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets. You ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors? Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. 2. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season 1 for the history books. Make it legendary. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPNBY or text HOPNY 467369, New York. Call 1-800.
Welcome back to the Hoosier Football Tailgate. Thanks to Academy Sports and BetMGM Sportsbook for their support of the Hoosier.com as well as the Hoosier Tailgate. It's a pretty good deal there with BetMGM with the $1,500 allowance. That's kind of a nice thing to be able to play off of, I guess you could say. So get over there and take advantage of that. And of course, if you have anything else besides Fanatics, we've talked about Academy Sports is another one that's even right there in Bloomington. So a lot of options when it comes to supporting the Hoosier.com as well as getting all the gear you can handle for the Indiana Hoosiers. But now I want to kind of get into some of the video stuff. And I think somebody at one point had mentioned it when I was going through those stats, and I didn't have anything about special teams. And we're going to talk about how a special teams can become a huge factor when you got 2 equally matched teams. And that's one thing that you can't let go unnoticed, because that ultimately could be the difference in a ball game such as this one coming up on Saturday. But let's head over here to the video room per se. Let's get things blowed up here. This is from their game against Duke, and we've got some plays here, and you're going to see how they like to line up. So that's Caucus there. Here's Hood. So they move those guys around. But you can see they're not big bodies. What they've got is quick guys. Okay. But this is a bear front, or what I call a double eagle in other terms. But this is what, Buddy Ryan made famous at with the Chicago Bears. And you can see right here how they're all out coming. And this one, the quarterback's reading that defensive end, which Indiana runs this play. They're getting a hat on a hat, and the quarterback's got it in a defense that wants to be overly aggressive. Those are the type of plays that they could give up when they're in that. Now, when they come in certain situations, this is 1st and 10, and they're in their base front. This is what I call their base front. We call it a 32 because there's 3 down, 2 linebackers up. Now, I'm showing it from the end zone so you can see how these guys are aligned, and you see these guys are really more gap players than they are on a tackle or guard. So they're more in that B gap than anything, with these linebackers being A gap players and a nose kind of being a two-way guy. But this is their base front. When you got a 5-man box like this, what we call a light box, you should be running the football right up there, because it's not very good to handle the run. And, what they don't do here is they don't get up to that backer, because that nose is doing a great job of holding on to the center. And the guard and left tackle are too occupied on, 2-on-1 on that. So this is one where you got to be smart in what you're calling and what you're running. And the reality of it is here, I don't know why the quarterback doesn't pull it here, because again, there is nobody out here. I mean, I know there's a safety back here or something, but again, who's got the quarterback? So these are the things that Indiana's got to say, and Coach Shanahan's looking at this and saying, we got to call reads. We got to call some reads. Now, we're not going to get carried away with it, but we got to keep them honest and not allow them to get away with stuff when we've got plays to dictate, okay, you want to do this, we can come with that, and be in a position to do those type of things. Let's see what I got here. Yeah, this is Duke's opening drive. And again, here's another look at it. Now they're in more of a 4-man front. So you see now we've gone from a 5-2 theoretically on the first play. All right. To a 3-2 on the second play. Now we're in a 6-man box and a 4-2. So we've had 3 different variations that we've seen thus far. Now, what they like to do in their coverage, they'll bring this guy off the boundary side a lot, just for the protection of the edge, because they like to turn these guys loose, and just void the flat. But you're going to get a 2 high, but they're going to rotate to either a 1 high or a man coverage, which is what they do here. As you can see, those corners are bailing out. So they're kind of playing a man look at first, but they're bailing to cover 3 because the way the defense is rotating. So the quarterback comes up, he sees 2 high safeties, and he sees these guys in their face. And all of a sudden he's like, okay, what do I got? Well, you got a 2 shell to start with. That's first and foremost. But he's got to be aware that what they like to do in this look, you're going to get a possibility of them rolling to some type of 3 or man on man. So you got to be smart with where you're going with the football based upon what happens after the snap. You can kind of see there, look at this. I mean, they're dropping the tackle. Look at this guy. He's dropping. He's playing because they're overplaying hook curl zones and things like that. So again, a lot of different looks. Some can be a little junky at times. Duke ended up with a field goal on that one. Okay, now they're back into their or their 5-man front, or their bear front look, or a 3-2 tight, however you want to look at it. But now they only got 1 backer in here. So now you're like at a 5-1 look. And you can see right now they got a single high safety, and you look at this, and that's kind of like a man look off the bat. So again, the quarterback has to know he's going to get one thing. There's a good indicator by motioning and this guy coming with him. There's a pretty good idea now he's got man coverage. And as you can see there, they did some twisting and it played man and spied the quarterback with a Mike backer. So you can see how quick Illinois is on some of this stuff. Let's see here. I wanted to get to, whoops. Where's that other one? Okay. Here's what I wanted to show you, and then we're going to jump to the defensive side here. Look, this is how you take advantage of a team that likes to do a lot of this look stuff up front. What I've got drawn here, because of a single high safety, these guys are in man. Okay. So you know these 6 are going to be doing something. Well, when you do this in man coverage, the quarterback is forgotten. And one of the best plays to run against this type of front is running away from the free and running what I call a speed option into the boundary. And you option this guy right here. Okay. And it's, as you can see how I got it drawn up, it's easy for the offensive line. But you talk about plays that you got to be ready as an offensive coordinator when you're going into a week like this, that you could say, hey, we get this look. This is what we want to do. And you run a speed option here and you play off this guy. And if he takes the quarterback, nobody's got the tailback. Now the back and the tackle's got to get this block, but we'll show the angles on it from the end zone. But that's the thought process of an OC and when they're game planning. Now, I'm not going to say that Indiana's going to do this type of play, but it's a high probability that if they do it, this would be a good way to attack this defense in this situation. And I'm going to flip over here to the end zone so you can see that picture. And you can see when you draw this up, it's angles. And the angles right now are in the offense's favor by attacking weak because the free is over here and there is nobody behind this guy over here, and you've got man on the outside. So again, I'm not saying that, Shanahan's going to run this play against this front. Who knows what he's going to do, but this is the type of mindset that you go into a game against this type of team. You got to find ways to attack their weakness based upon what they're showing defensively. And that right there is a weakness in that type of front because they're essentially daring you to run it. Now, still got to execute it. Doesn't mean it's the $64,000 question per se, but you still got to execute that type of play. Now, they don't run this concept here. And if I'm not mistaken, they run kind of an outside zone concept and get to the corner, which is a tough play because they're playing it wrong. Hood is wrong there. Hood really should, I guess he's okay because he's counting on the guy outside of him to take and pin him back inside, but he gets to the outside on him and has a big run. Let's see what we got here now. So you can see offensively there, you got to be ready to show them an attack type of mentality of what what you're going to do with certain situations with this defense. And you got to be able to have those answers in a quick fashion. And that's what I meant by mentally, Mendoza's got to be on top of it. He's got to be mentally prepared for this game because of what Illinois will throw at him. They're not going to sit back and play zone and let him just have his day dinking and, picking them apart. They're going to pressure him quite extensively because in the PFF stats that I looked at right now, when Mendoza's under pressure, his completion percentage is like 45%. So you got to figure that Illinois, looking at that stat alone versus how he attacks zone coverage, where he's like 70% in his completions, right now you're going to get pressure because that's where statistically he's fallen short in that regard. All right, let's look at a little bit of defense here, and then we'll talk a little bit about what I think is going to take on Saturday. But again, just like I said with their defense, they didn't have a lot of big guys on defense. And when you look at this center, I don't think is that big of a guy. Now, he's strong as an ox. And you can kind of see here what Duke kind of did to him. They got after their tackles. Their tackles are one of their weak spots. You can kind of see right here. Both of them are kind of bull rushing them. But this guy on the left side here, they're lucky they still have Luke as a quarterback because that looked bad in that regard. Whoops. Sorry, boys. Again, they'll run the RPO game too, and he's very good at it. This is a good play. Look how these guys are coming out looking like he's stalking out here to throw the quick screen to number one, and the inside number two puts his foot in the ground and runs a slant, and that's too easy right there. That's too easy. Now, it ends up being an incomplete pass because he drops the ball, but you can see how clean it is in that regard. I'm showing you some of these end zones because Duke got after him as well in terms of what they did to him. And again, you got to be ready. And here's the one thing that they did a pretty good job of. They took his escape lanes away. There's three guys on one, and he still gets a sack. Now, Luke is a good scrambler too. That's one thing I'll tell you. Whoops. I don't know what happened there. Again, another good job by the defense, getting tough and inside and, playing physical football. That's what Duke did in the first half. They were defensively, they just out-physicaled them. And Illinois caught some breaks and was able to cash in on it. Again, this is one where he gets away and this guy catches this ball, but you can see his elusiveness in the pocket and he can make plays. So the DBs and stuff got to stay in their coverage. That cat makes the catch down there. That was a heck of a play when you look at it from that perspective. Well, let's see here. There was one more I wanted to show. Yeah, this is another throw he makes here. Crossing routes when Duke's going into basically a cover one look, man free. And this is a great throw and a great beater of this coverage to throw this deep crosser. And he can rip it now. So hopefully you guys got a little bit of insight there with what Illinois likes to do in this offense and defense from that standpoint. Let me go back here and see if we got any. See, Rudy, you had a quote. Yeah, 200 yards against this defense would be phenomenal. If they could do that and throw for another 200 and 250, that would be a great day at the office. Okay, let's see. Anybody got out any other questions? The total points allowed on these games, 22 points. Yes. I mean, they're, like I said, their defense, they're not overly big, but they're quick and fast, and they utilize quickness and speed to beat you. Yeah, that dude is a player. He is a player. But that's where, like, Kamara's got to come on and have a hell of a day, because he's got that ability to control that in that regard. So that would be huge from that standpoint, where, you know, Kamara could really be a benefactor of that type of game. And it's one of those things that they got to get after him defensively, because you can't get, like Duke did there, is they got after him and they played him aggressive from start to finish. And then the defense they got hung out to dry, because every ball that was turned over was deep in their territory for the most part. And when you give Illinois short field, they're going to take advantage of it, just like Indiana would. So you can't have those type of mistakes and put your defense at a disadvantage and giving your opponent a short field. The more that Indiana can force Illinois to have to drive the football, the better, because most of the time an offense will mess up and not be perfect to go on a consistent, 12 play, 14 play drive and get a touchdown. They may do it once, but it's hard to do it consecutively. So that's the big thing too, is the field position battle in this game. All right, here, let's go down to here real quick. And like I said, we're down in Bloomington in the beautiful Memorial Stadium. Great picture of that right there. And kind of want to go into this a little bit and talk a bit about, what are some things that this ball club has to do from just an offense and defensive perspective, not putting numbers to it like I have over the last few weeks and try to do this. But number one, Indiana has to have a balanced attack that goes hand in hand with playing complementary offense and defense. And to be balanced like they have been, and they've done a great job of this for the last 2 years, is really making the opponent defense guess a lot, because Indiana's balance. That's one. They have to have a lot of efficiency in their run pass game. And efficiency for me, when you talk first down and second down efficiency, you're talking averaging at least 4 yards per play in those categories, and setting up your third and shorts and third and mediums. And they've done that. And when they're consistently doing that, Indiana's very hard to beat. They've done a great job of that through the last year, and they've done it so far this year. Aggressive play calling. Shanahan has got to have an aggressive mindset against Illinois, because if you get in the mindset that you're trying to overguess what they're going to do, you're going to be back on your heels. So being aggressive in his play calling is going to be huge, and having targeted plays will help be that aggressive. So what I mean by that is, how am I going to get the ball in the hands of my best players? How am I going to get the ball to Surratt, Omar? How am I going to get the ball to EJ? How am I going to use EJ in this battle Saturday as a big-time linky receiver versus a corner that may not be in his category size-wise, and that's an advantage to take advantage of. So he's got to have those type of plays in mind to attack this defense. They have to continue to have the red zone conversions like they did last game. If they are getting if they're not finishing drives and getting just 3 points, it's not going to be enough, because you've got to put points on the board with this defense. David asked, I'm wondering about the short passes to running backs to defeat blitz. Yes, and Indiana has not shown that, and that's, again, going back to my targeted play mindset, because when you think about it, how am I going to get the ball in Himby's hands? By not just always handing it off to him, or Black's hands. How does that happen, in targeted plays? So that's kind of what I was referencing there, David, with those targeted plays on top of how they go about game planning this week. And then, of course, Indiana's got to continue to be good with no turnovers. Mendoza right now is making good decisions, and he hasn't thrown a pick, knock on wood, and he's got to continue that on Saturday. When it's not there, get rid of it. Don't take the unnecessary sack. It's better to line up 3rd and 10 than 3rd and 15 or 20. So when he's not, the protection breaks down, or they got a good coverage sack, find your escape route or throw the ball away. He's got to be able to do that. But offensively, that's what they've got to do. Now, how that equates into, a 200 yard or 250 yards rushing and X amount of passing, I don't know. But Indiana, from a run game standpoint, that has been a good, consistent run game the last 3 weeks. It's put up 300 yards plus rushing. And, if they could rush for 200 yards against this defense, it's given up 74 right now. That's a pretty good day's office work, because that's the type of game that Indiana wants for sure in that regard. All right, let's see here. Where's my other one? There we go. Then defensively, from a defensive standpoint, Indiana has got to win first downs, meaning that efficiency thing that defensively so far they've been doing, holding the offense under 3 yards on average on first and second down. That's definitely a thing. If they can hold them to under 100 yards rushing and keep them, right at or under Indiana's average, that's a good thing. Coach Haynes has got to have an attacking and aggressive mindset, just like Shanahan does. He's got to find ways that he can dictate the play to Illinois and not Illinois dictate the play to Indiana Saturday. So they've got to find ways, in creative ways, to stop run and have a pass defense that's lights out and gets after Altmaier. And Indiana right now hasn't had to blitz that much or play man that much, because they've been the better team. And when you're the better team in that regard, you're not going to just go out there and start flying blitzes off the handle. Indiana, has some things probably they haven't shown much, but you can bet that they're gonna bring it out this week. But attacking and aggressive is going to be a key thing with that. Win the money down. That's third down wins. We talked about where they're at in terms of in Illinois is at on third down efficiency. Indiana's got to win the money down on Saturday versus Illinois. Takeaways, again, Indiana's at a +4, Illinois is +6. Force Illinois to be one-dimensional. And that's a thing that, too, there's a big aspect to it when you think about all that. And then when you think about special teams plays on Saturday, Indiana's special teams thus far has been on point. Kicking game has been very good for Indiana. Punt return has been a big weapon, and Brady has done a heck of a job. He's got a big punt return. He's got many punt returns that he set up the offense to be in a scoring position by shorting the field. And anytime he can average over 10 yards of return, that's like getting one first down that Indiana doesn't have to get on Saturday. Now, I highly doubt Illinois is going to kick the ball too much to him. I just telling you right now, that ball probably is not going to be too close to him because of what he's shown on tape. And that would be a killer if he would get loose against them. And on vice versa, Indiana's going to have to be on point in their coverage game because, like Beatty, the kid, is another elusive guy that can make plays. So in the special teams game on Saturday, when you got two teams equally matched, you got to find ways to win what we call the hidden yardage game. And those are the things that ultimately add up, because what it ends up doing is creating long field for the offense to go, your opponent's offense, and a short field for your offense. And that's that hidden yardage game that you hear people talking about quite a bit on Saturday when you're talking about two talented teams going up against each other. So, that's the thing there. Let's see what I got here with Chris. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I talked about that earlier about the two players that had the same. I mean, those are the type of mistakes that just you can't have. I mean, that's just a lack of focus, of putting two players out there with the same number. I mean, that's whether it was an injury happened, then that's why it happened. But you can't let that happen because they gave up a first down, and you can't have 5 fumbles in a ball game. I mean, it's just they're not going to win. So Indiana, again, how they're going to win this game is aggressiveness on offense and defense and an attacking mentality and special teams that wins the hidden yardage on Saturday night. Now, on the Hoosier.com, you can go over there and read everyone's take on the game. I predicted a 27-20 ball game. I do think it may be closer than that. And I do think that these two defenses are going to have a lot to say on who wins on Saturday. Indiana has got to make sure when you're playing a skilled quarterback like they are, that they keep him in check, because Altmaier can run the football. He doesn't do it a lot, but when he does it, he's pretty effective at it, and he has a really good ability to scramble. And that's when some of their big plays have hit for them, is him getting out on the run and making the play. And then Indiana, this game with Mendoza, they're going to have to change the launch point with him throwing the football. And that's whether it's drop back, whether you run nakeds, you run boots, things like that. So you're not always just doing drop back passes, because if you give them any idea of any type of consistency, those guys are going to pin their ears back and come. And they want you to third and long because they want to pin their ears back and come at you and be one-dimensional. So, again, it's going to be a great game. I do think it's one of those games that Indiana, this is their chance to make a statement. This is the game that they, as a group, can make a statement Saturday night. Now, if that doesn't happen, does that mean everything's over? No. Doesn't mean that at all. You're talking your fourth game of the season and nothing is over. But at the same time, you put yourself in the best position Saturday, because you have Iowa on the road and Oregon on the road for the next 2 weeks. And you've got to make sure you're giving yourself the best chance to win. And at home, especially, you got to protect your home turf. And that's what Indiana's going to have to do on Saturday to get a win. So I appreciate you guys being with me again tonight. Having questions, I do appreciate that as well. Again, I hope you guys can get to the game on Saturday. If not, catch it on NBC. And just like we do each and every week, Monday, I'll be back to break it all down, to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly here on the Tailgate. Well, hey, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. You've been watching the Hoosier Football Tailgate here on thehoosier.com. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll be seeing you Monday.